Hi, and welcome to SCW here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Talking AEW Full Gear for you now. My results, reaction, and review to the show. Starting with the buy-in. Going to be talking, of course, Serena Deeb defeating Allysin Kay. It was her first appearance, Allysin Kay, in AEW since declaring she was a free agent. This was mentioned on commentary as well, so it'll be interesting to see if she will be signed to AEW following this match. Of course, she was with NWA before, which makes it quite interesting that she'd be going for the championship of the promotion she's just left. But despite that, I thought that this was a good kickoff match. I think it did what it needed to do when you look at it. I think it was right to be on the buying as well. Both two experienced female performers fighting for the NWA championship, of course, the Women's Championship, and of course, being a different promotion, Allysin Kay's first appearance in AEW. From a casual standpoint, I think it was right to put it at this position of the show. Looking at the match itself, of course, Deeb did kick out of Allysin Kay's finishing move, the AK-47. This was followed by a dragon screw in the ring ropes on Allysin Kay from Serena Deeb, and at a point that Kay's leg was kind of hurt after that, which put her quite vulnerable to be put in the Tequila Sunrise, which of course Serena Deeb calls the Serenity Lock. So we had Serena Deeb actually retain the NWA Women's Championship, which, like I say, it was a good solid opener. It was right for the buy-in, in my personal opinion. I think that it would have been wrong to put it on the main show. But one thing that would have counter-argued that would have been the aftermath of this match, as Deeb was celebrating in victory. Thunder Rosa made her return after the match and actually came down to ringside to confront Serena Deeb in the ring. And yeah, I mean, this looked pretty cool. It looks like it will set up a rematch going with these two. Of course, Thunder Rosa is the former NWA Women's Champion. There was rumours that she was heading to WWE, but that looks to not be happening for the time being. I expect these two to probably have a match on Dynamite probably somewhere going forward. So I'm quite looking forward to that. I'm intrigued and excited with the idea that Thunder Rosa is back performing in an AEW ring, and the fact that Rosa and Allysin Kay could be performing in future events for AEW excites me as well. But one other thing from the buy-in, just quickly before we go to the show, it was a subdued and focused Eddie Kingston with his fam. Kingston saying that he only cares about the AEW World Championship and it's the only world title that matters, which I thought was quite an interesting note that was made there, really showing the importance of the AEW World Championship. We kicked off the main show with Kenny Omega against Hangman Adam Page. And for those that have been watching my videos on this channel before, they'll know that it's my favourite feud of the entire year anywhere in wrestling. Interesting note that Don Callis was on commentary as a guest of Kenny Omega. For those not knowing, Don Callis is an executive for Impact Wrestling. So interesting that he was there on the commentary table. Justin Roberts, as usual, reading off lots of accolades for Kenny Omega on his entrance. We got the Sweeper Girls, who are not quite as in sync as the Nitro Girls back in the day, but certainly makes a great entrance for Kenny Omega. It was actually announced as well that Kenny Omega, not only has he plenty of tournament victories, but has 8 years more experience than Hangman Adam Page. I kind of felt that when looking at the match itself, I kind of think it kind of missed a little bit of that charisma that was in recent times we've seen with Kenny Omega. That real heel side that we see was meant to be coming out, but instead of that, it was more of a simplistic match between these two. It was showing who could put on the best performance and who could outdo the other. There was lots of reversals, lots of counters. You could really see that these two have learnt a lot together, being tag team partners for the last 9 months. Tony Schiavone described it as a bit of a slugfest at the start of the match. Of course, it was going all around the ringside, and as I say, lots of reversals, avoiding lots of big moves. There was a little spot, though, where you kind of felt said that Kenny Omega might have hurt himself. He did tweak his knee, it seemed, on an early spot, and it was shown once again as well when he did a dive over the top rope. He sort of took a bit of time to get to his feet, but he managed to get through without any problems, though, for the rest of the match. Kenny Omega did kick out of the Dead Eye, but he avoided the Buckshot Lariat, and that led to a V-trigger and the One-Winged Angel, and Kenny Omega picked up the victory. Personally, for me, I thought this was outstanding. I think it lived up to the ridiculous hype that this match had. The only thing I think would have made it a 5-star classic is if we'd have had something defining for Kenny Omega to have, solidified himself as a heel, because he's been going that direction, it feels, for quite a bit of time now. But other than that, I still think it was perfect. And what you could argue from that is that there's lots saved if they want to do this feud further down the line, because now Kenny Omega is the #1 contender for the AEW World Championship. And for those that have watched my videos previously will know that I've suggested Kenny Omega will win the AEW Championship. I think he's going to beat the champion as we go on later in this video to find out who is still the champion. And I think in the later rivalry with Hangman Page, Page will then take the championship from Kenny Omega. So I don't think this rivalry is finished, but I think it's now going to be put to side for the next 3 to 6 months. Kenny Omega didn't seem to want to even look at Hangman Page at the end of this match as well, which was very interesting. Hangman Adam Page as well looked absolutely distraught as well in the ring. It'll be interesting to see his direction going forward from here. Next, we had Orange Cassidy against Jon, #4 of the Dark Order, Silver. I really liked this match. It was a comedy match, but it was put together really well, I thought, for the time that it was allocated. Jon Silver actually ripping off the pockets of Orange Cassidy's ring attire, which I thought was really good to stop him putting his hands in there. Silver as well did an impressive one-arm gorilla press slam as well, which I thought was quite cool. He went for Brody Lee's finisher with of course, the clothesline. He missed that. Instead, he actually received an orange punch, of course, Superman punch from Orange Cassidy, and a beach break actually gave Cassidy the victory. This one I think was good. I think that even though these guys are more comedy wrestlers, I think that they really pulled one out of the bag here. I thought it was a good, solid encounter for the second match of the evening. Moving on to our third match of the night, we had Cody against Darby Allin. Darby Allin, of course, the story going into this is, will Darby Allin be the face of TNT? It feels that there was a reluctance, Darby believing that people wanted to see him as the face of TNT. And Cody saying, well, look, I think TNT will be quite proud of you having that position, but at the same time, you're not going to get it. And I thought that was quite an interesting thing going into this match because it hadn't really been built that well, in my opinion. But the fact that we had this going in there meant that even with a subtle bit of story, we had a story going into this match. And looking over the previous history with these two, it really played into the encounter we watched. Darby Allin actually came to the ring, of course, with came out of a car that was probably seen better days, and a skateboard saying the face of TNT. That was put through the windscreen of the car as Darby came to the ring. Cody came to the ring with his entourage and was announced finally as Cody Rhodes. That's right, he will be having that going forward. He's won the trademark war with WWE, it seems, so Cody Rhodes will remain going forward. And Mike Yoda was the referee for this match as well. Nice little, seed put into this, just to give another little bit of hyper specialness. Of course, Mike Yoda, a very experienced official to do this match, so that felt pretty special. As we say with the previous meetings, Darby had almost beaten Cody Rhodes, and Cody just couldn't put Darby away, and he seemed to feel less focused as the match went on as well. A couple of real spots that I really liked in this match, and one of them was the avalanche crossroads on the top rope. Devastating it looked, and the fact that Darby's arm was underneath the bottom rope, if Cody was just a little bit more focused, I'm pretty sure he would have picked up the 3 count. This also went to further later on in the match where they did a previous finish, almost it felt, of one of their matches for the TNT semi-final championship tournament, actually, where Darby hit the coffin drop on Cody, but this time, instead of Cody being able to roll it over for the pinfall, Darby actually managed to make a pinfall, but was only given a 2 count. There was a series of roll-ups to finish off the match, and Darby managed to catch Cody out to pick up the victory, and Darby Allin becomes your brand new TNT champion, which for me was a real shocking moment. I was really surprised to see this happen so soon into Cody's reign here. But Darby Allin, I mean, for me, this is what we want to see. I said going into year 2 of AEW, I want to see some AEW guys, not these previous people that have worked in WWE on the main roster, becoming champions and carrying the company. Darby really feels like one of these young up-and-coming talents that could carry the TNT championship and really, start building these new stars for tomorrow in the company. So for that reason, it being a shock, but also I'm very pleased to see Darby Allin have his moment becoming the TNT champion and now the face of TNT. But that wasn't it. After Cody presented him with the championship to really put him over, Taz came out, which led to an attack by Brian Cage and Ricky Starks on both Cody and Darby Allin from behind. They went into the crowd area and Cage put Darby through one of these sort of full gear balls that we had around ringside. Then Darby was taken to the car that he came to his entrance, and they were going to break his arm using Darby Allin's arm in between the car door. They were going to smash it, and just in the nick of time, Will Hobbs come out to make the save, chasing the heels off with a steel chair. Looks like Hobbs will not be joining Team Taz after all here, and it builds a natural ready-made feud for Darby Allin going forward, because it looked like both Brian Cage and Ricky Starks at one point, both holding the TNT Championship, almost wanting to feud with one another. They both want this belt. It feels important. Darby Allin has challengers going forward, and it really feels like that mid-card is really strong in AEW. There was a promo backstage, and it's been made that we've got a bunkhouse match coming. I'm really looking forward to this. It's been years since we've seen one of these. QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes will be taking on Butcher and the Blade this upcoming week on Dynamite. It was also announced we'll have Penta versus Phoenix Part 2. Can't wait for that. Had an epic match last time, and I'm a big fan of Lucha Underground back in the day, so I'm a big fan of both of these guys' work. Cannot wait to see these guys once again on Dynamite this week. Ty Conti as well will be taking on Red Velvet. I'm pleased to see Ty Conti will get a Dynamite appearance, so looking forward to that this upcoming week on Dynamite. Next we had Hikaru Shida defending the Women's Championship against Nyla Rose. Now I must admit, this match was very physical. It was decent, but it was a match that I just didn't care about so much. And I think my reasoning for it was the lack of build and probably the amount of involvement from outside interference from Vicky Guerrero as well kind of harmed the match a little bit for me. But looking at it, I still think it was alright for what it was. Of course, Vicky Guerrero giving Nyla Rose the advantage by using a kendo stick on Shida's knee ringside. Rose was just too cocky for the match. She had the match won a few times, but seemed to pull Shida up at the count of 2, which just, infuriated the commentary team, it seemed. Of course, if you have a chance to win a championship, you win that championship. Shida managed to get back into the match, and of course, then she pulled Rose up a 2 with a very sinister looking smile when she did so. So, I mean, for me, I kind of liked that little moment. That was quite cool. That sort of brought me back into the match a bit. The final finish seemed that Vicky Guerrero was going to use the kendo stick once again, but Audrey Edwards stopped her from doing so on the floor way. From this, Shida pushed Nyla Rose into Vicky Guerrero, back into the ring, and a lot of knee strikes from Hikaru Shida, eventually picking up the victory there. But of course, that was the injured knee that was used as well, but it did manage to put Nyla Rose away. After the match, Vicky Guerrero did slap Nyla Rose as well. All in all, I think this was okay if you say it did what it needs to do. But what I would say is that when you look at the Women's Championship earlier in the evening, it feels like there's new contenders. There's a division, people vying for that championship. It's not quite the same with the AEW Women's Championship. It really just highlights still that even on their own show, their Women's Championship, even though it's more of a priority being on the main show, it's not seemingly as in demand as the championship on the buy-in. AEW really needs to address that with their women's division. But on pay-per-view, the matches are good. They just need to do more focus on these matches and building up angles and new stars on Dynamite. The women do need more time. Next, we had easily the match of the night, in my opinion. An incredible tag team championship match between FTR and the Young Bucks. Tully Blanchard was barred from ringside, so he could not be there to aid FTR in this match. And I have to say that the storytelling from start to finish of this was absolutely sublime. Matt Jackson, of course, injured his foot before this with attacks from FTR, and that was played into the match. Dax Harwood as well injured his hand during the match and actually punched the ring post. So this was played back and forth between both of these guys and nullified, making things quite equal between the two teams. As well as playing off on the injuries, I really liked as well the styles, how that was used together as well, because of course FTR really representing the old school of the 80s, and you could see the Young Bucks representing the 90s, that influence and the clash of styles, both actually using classic finishers and special moves from old teams. FTR using the Hart Foundation and the Steiners. You saw the Bucks using the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, even like the classic 3D they're being used, the Swanton. It was great to see those moves played off into the match. You saw FTR even going with classic match they had with DIY back, of course, in NXT, that classic 2016 match where arguably this rivalry started with the Twitter war, who was the best tag team. We saw that the classic DIY finisher was used as well from the FTR team as well, to only pick up a 2 count. This played towards the end of the match, and like I say, both guys' injury playing off here. Each time one of them used their fist or their foot, they were both on the floor in pain. We got to a point where Matt Jackson actually had a steel chair, which was threatening to hit Dax Harwood with it. Dax sort of saying, come on, hit me with a chair, hit me with the chair. It was all a play to lead into the Meltzer driver, but just as Nick Jackson was about to jump on the ring rope, he was actually taken off by Cash Wheel and powerbombed over to the table that was seated on the outside. We saw a spike pile driver from the FTR boys, and at that point, Matt Jackson managed to get his foot on the rope, and it seemed that that was a kind of almost a bit of a key moment in the match, you felt, because Cash Wheeler had that sort of leg hooked as well, but still managed to get that one on the rope. We saw a point here as well then where Matt Jackson's sort of boot and his sock was taken off. He was barefoot. They were trying to attack the barefoot here. And as we go into the finish, Cash Wheeler seemed to just abandon the original game plan. Like I say, both of these had their philosophies of wrestling, and Cash Wheeler actually went to do a super kick and then went to do a springboard 450 splash. Missed that splash, which led to Matt Jackson barefoot super kicking Cash to pick up the victory and the 1-2. And of course, the Young Bucks become the new AEW World Tag Team Champions. So when we had this storyline going in saying if the Bucks were to lose here, they could not go for the championships again, I was really sad thinking that if they did lose, that would just really harm the division. So for me, this is actually the right booking move to do. Yes, FTR have lost those belts very quickly. I had the championships for around 2 months, but nothing's to say the Bucks have to have these belts too long either. I don't think this feud is finished as of yet. I think we could go on to a second or even a third chapter. I thoroughly love this match, and I think that I would be happy to see this play out again somewhere else down the line. The fact that, of course, as we say, Cash Wheeler actually went against the philosophy. It would be interesting to see if the rematch happened, if both teams, or maybe the Bucks would go against their philosophy, how they would change it up. I'm sure it will not be the last time we see these guys against each other. But Kenny Omega come out to celebrate as well with the Young Bucks, and we did see Hangman Page by the sort of, the booth where they come out of the entranceway, just sort of lurking in the background, looking as well, still hurt from his loss earlier on in the evening. So it feels like that there's certainly a lot going around with this storyline still, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. For me, this was the best thing I saw on the night. From the best thing to the craziest thing, let's go to Elite Deletion, shall we? Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara. Of course, this took place at the Hardy compound, and it is absolutely crazy. It's going to be hard to really explain this match properly, I will be honest with you, but I'm going to go through some of the key points that you need to know about the match. And let's just say, as I say, at the Hardy compound, Sammy Guevara actually arrived in a golf cart, which was quickly run over by a monster truck from Matt Hardy. These two brawling through the woods, which led to a ring. Very quickly, this became 3-on-3. Of course, Santana and Ortiz there to help Sammy Guevara. Private Party were there to help Matt Hardy. We almost had like a firework war going on between Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara, and I must admit, it was kind of fun to watch, but it did look dangerous as hell, I must admit. Also, it wasn't enough with the cameos. We had two legends come in there. Hurricane coming in on the side of Matt Hardy, and Gangrel, who is continually referred to as David Heath by Jim Ross. Of course, that's breaking kayfabe there, but those two were involved there. Hurricane Helms being thrown continue in the Lake of Reincarnation, coming as not just the Hurricane, but also reporter Gregory Helms, which I thought was a nice, fun touch as well. These two continue to brawl at Hardy and Sammy Guevara away from the ringside, away from everybody else. They ended up in like a garage. And at this point, we'd seen a lot of the heels in the ringside. Santana, Ortiz, and Gangrel had looked to try and gang up on a 4-on-1, but couldn't obviously get into this garage. And this was where the match kind of took a brutal turn, if you want. There was, a ring inside this garage, which Sammy Guevara took apart, was attacking, some of the steel pipes that were holding the ring together on Hardy. We saw then, a giant ladder in the ring as well, on a table spot where Guevara did a swanton off the top of the ladder, which was very reminiscent, I suppose, of a Jeff Hardy swanton from these previous WrestleManias of years gone by. But Matt Hardy did kick out at 2. It looked like then that Sammy Guevara was on sort of the ring sort of apron and was speared by Matt Hardy through some tables. This had like a nasty looking spot, and it seemed to almost go back a bit of bad taste to All Out, really, because Sammy Guevara looked to be bleeding from the back of the head and from his mouth as well, from this spot also, which clearly is a stage spot, but at the same time, from the way that it was visualized and portrayed, maybe leaving a bad taste for the audience at home. At this point, Sammy Guevara was kind of out of it really as well. He was attacked with a chair, which of course was where this feud kind of started. And just to finish it off, we've seen a lot of these references to 90s wrestling through the night. Who remembers back in the day when Edge used to use the self-concerto? Kind of like that. Matt Hardy using a steel chair to Sammy Guevara's bloody head in between that and this concrete floor for the 1, 2, 3. Sammy looked absolutely out of it. It was a bit of a, stop and kind of think moment when this match was finished. You kind of were glad it was finished because it was brutal. But obviously to bring back some more comedic value to finish it off, Sinor Benjamin was there to take away the trash, which of course Sammy Guevara was put in the trash can by Matt Hardy and Private Party. This was wacky, it was crazy, it was fun in places. I really enjoyed seeing the cameos of Gangrel and Hurricane. I thought that they definitely brought some comedy to this, and these Hardy matches, these cinematic matches are always crazy. I think that this one delivered. I think it's one of the better ones I've seen in a while. The finish of the match was quite brutal, I will say, and I know that's probably not going to be to everybody's taste, but overall, I thought this was okay, I would say. say with that. But and I thought what was also great about putting this match in this place of the card, I felt it was a good time to take away from the ring action, because it does make you a bit more refreshed when you go back to ringside. But I would say that these events are longer, and I think that this was the first match coming up next where you could turn around and say that people were a bit fatigued. It was MJF against Chris Jericho, which of course is two slower heel versus heel based athletes. It's not a high flying encounter, but I think they did an okay match between these two, Jericho and MJF. I like that MJF came out as well with like a Jericho-style jacket. It was all very nostalgic, nice throwback back into the day. We go towards the finish of the match, and of course, Wardlow comes to the ring to hand MJF his dynamite ring that he has. Before we can actually go to give that to Jericho, Wardlow's standing on the ring apron. Audrey Edwards is attracted to him at this point, as the attention is there. Jake Hager comes to hand Chris Jericho a baseball bat. So both clearly had the same idea. It's that very one-upsmanship between the two of them, as they've had throughout this entire program. But MJF, of course, manages to get one up on Chris Jericho, doing the famous a la Eddie Guerrero, of course, not long after 15 years after his passing. And MJF, of course, looking like he'd been hit by the baseball bat, for Audrey Edwards to turn around and say, "Did you do that?" Jericho pleading with the referee, and at that point, of course, MJF comes in, hits a roll-up, and of course holds the tights as well to actually get the 1, 2, 3. So MJF is your victor. MJF and Wardlow are now in the inner circle, celebrating together, all four of them at the end there. I think it's going to be a very interesting story. This is clearly just starting. Will it lead to, of course, the inner circle imploding from within? Is this the 4 members that we'll see that's going to last at the inner circle? Or is there going to be a case where, MJF actually turns on Jericho? There's lots of ways this still can go. It's just starting. It's getting exciting, and I cannot wait to see where it's going to go next. Even if the match, you could say, was a little underwhelming on pay-per-view, I would say that this, for me, was still, it did what it needed to do, and I think that overall it was satisfactory. The main event was absolutely bloody, violent, brutal, hardcore. We're talking the I Quit match, the AEW World Championship. We're talking Jon Moxley against Eddie Kingston. And for me, I thought this was good. I mean, we had a barbed wire baseball bat, steel chairs, thumbtacks. There was a really brutal spot as well where, Jon Moxley had gone through thumbtacks, and Eddie Kingston went to ringside and got like the pure-based alcohol to pour on his back, and just, of course, with them open wounds, just looked absolutely brutal and nasty. As well, Kingston wrapping barbed wire around his hand to actually continually punch Jon Moxley. Both guys were bloody during this match, and what I really liked about it, I will say, is that instead of having both doing moves and then getting the referee to ask if they quit, it's like, if you don't quit now, I'm going to do this to you, was going on throughout the match. And I really liked that touch, because it almost felt, especially from Jon Moxley's side, that he didn't really want to do this to his friend. I think that was nicely played into the storyline. Of course, Kingston may have lost his mind a little bit, but Moxley still remembers, the good times, it feels, and it's a championship defense at the end of the day, and does what he needs to do. And eventually he comes to Eddie Kingston's level, pulls off the barbed wire, puts it around, puts in that submission hold he's been using, that sort of bulldog sleeper with the barbed wire. Nowhere for Eddie Kingston to go, and end in L. Eddie Kingston has to say the words "I quit" for Jon Moxley to retain his championship. Kenny Omega does come to ringside afterwards, but doesn't want to get in the ring with Jon Moxley. Seeing what they did at Full Gear last year, he more or less made plain, like, we did that before. I want no part of that. I want a one-on-one encounter, and that's where I'm going to come out on top. Omega goes to the backstage, and Moxley celebrates as the show goes off the air. I think, all in all, this show was fantastic. I have to say, I really enjoyed Full Gear. I think that it really delivered, especially on the big matches that needed to deliver on the show. On paper, this card was solid, and what I really like, as I say, with what I mentioned with Darby Allin earlier on, Young Bucks kind of come under this as well. Non-WWE guys holding those AEW championships going forward is something that is nice to see into the second year of Dynamite. It's time to start building the new stars. I think Kenny Omega will become your next champion as well, and I think that he can then be the face of the company, pushing things forward. And like I say, it's another guy that is not ex-WWE that will be carrying the AEW flag as the world champion, your tag champions, and your TNT champion. And that would make almost all the championships like that as well, because of course Hikaru Shida right now is your women's champion also. So we're almost there. We're almost getting in that position position now for AEW, and they can continue to build new stars. They can continue to use these, the ex-WWE guys, the top guys as well, to continue to put over the new talent. It's an exciting period and time right now in AEW. And to give this show, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think that it was a good pay-per-view. I recommend people do go and watch it and check it out if they haven't seen it. And I'd like to know your thoughts if you have seen it in the comments below. I'd like to know what your favourite part of the show was. Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree in places? What do you want to see going forward in AEW? I think that's an interesting question to ask as well. If you are interested in my Q&A, then that will be dropping up later this evening UK time. So I'll probably be dropping around 9-10 o'clock tonight. So make sure to go and check that out when it comes out. And like I say, if you enjoy this, please hit the thumb up. Leave a comment as well, subscribe, hit the bell, and set the setting to all for when each and every video is released. And like I say, more interesting AEW videos, the more of them I will do. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But I'm pleased to see that we have, some new champions, and Darby Allin to be the new face of TNT. I think, like I said, the big match is delivered here. I think overall, on paper, this was a solid card, even if not every match was built perfectly. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think this is a great show, and I think people should go and check out. It's definitely one of my favourite shows that I've seen in a while, and I think it's probably the best AEW show I've seen probably since Double or Nothing. But that's it for me anyway. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. You've been watching SCW here on YouTube.com. Take care. Have yourselves a great day.